Hello everybody, my name is Johnny. Welcome to New Life Ranch. This is the reptile room. This is my little buddy friend Cleo right here. And we're gonna be exploring some of the reptiles we have here. I'm gonna invite some of my AE friends and they're gonna come and they're gonna help us out with this. And let's get started. So today I'm going to be introducing you guys to one of my personal favorite reptiles we have here. It's a crested gecko. So, as all of reptiles we have here, it is called endothermic. So what that means is these guys cannot produce body heat, but instead they live in hotter climates where they can live under the sun or live on top of tall trees so that they don't get too cold. So some really interesting facts about these guys is they actually don't have eyelids. And so what they do instead is they can stick out their tongue and they can lick their eyes to move debris or make sure there's enough moisture in the eyes so they don't dry out. It's very, very cool. So they can actually drop their tail at any point they want to. This is a voluntary action, so what that means is they have the control of when they do it. So the reason why they do this, if a predator were to take their tail and if they were to pick it up and move it, they can drop it so they can get away. So unlike their cousin that we're gonna meet in a little bit, they actually cannot regrow their tail. So a lot of adults in captivity don't have their tails because they often drop them. Some other really cool facts about these guys is they kind of have this really cool Spider-Man move. What that means is they have these little bitty hairs on their little legs. And so what that means is they can climb almost any surface. So that's really useful when they're climbing trees or things like that to get away from predators on the forest floors and things like that. Their main diet consists of like rotten fruit that falls on the ground or a lot of bugs when it comes like moths, things like that. Here in captivity, we often feed them fruits type stuff. Now I'm gonna throw it over to my friend Esri and she's gonna talk about the leopard geckos.
Hello, my name is Esri. I am one of the adventure guides. This is one of our leopard geckos, and his name is Magneto. Any guesses to why we call him a leopard gecko? Just like leopards, this leopard gecko uses his camouflage to hide from his predators. Magneto is from rocky, dry grasslands and desert regions of North Asia. He eats varied prey such as moths, spiders, and other insects. We feed him live mealworms and we dust them with calcium and a multivitamin to give them their nutrients. Females grow up to 7 to 8 inches long and males grow up to 11 inches long. Another fact is that they shed their skin once a month. They will eat their shedded skin. Some theories on why they do this is that they will eat the shedded skin to hide where they were. And then another way that they eat their skin is to obtain protein and nutrients for growth. So you may notice that their tail is very fat. The reason for that is that they store their energy in their tails. They can drop their tails, it will grow back, but it will be stubby and they will not have the original size of their tail. All right, I'm gonna hand it over to Kiara, who's gonna be doing bearded dragons.
Hi, my name is Kiara. This here is King Julian, and he is a bearded dragon. So you may have seen bearded dragons before. They're pretty common as pets, or maybe not. They are native to Australia. You can find them in the desert areas, woodlands, scrublands, savannas. You can pretty frequently find them out on trees and bushes and rocks, sunning themselves to get nice and warm. They like to be pretty hot most of the time. In the wild, they eat a lot of different things, fruit and leaves, invertebrates such as ants and beetles, and also other vertebrates such as smaller lizards. So they're omnivorous, meaning they eat both plants and animals. Here we feed them superworms 2 to 3 times a week, and then also an omnivore mix 3 to 4 times a week. These guys are pretty territorial, so don't want to have multiple of them in the same enclosure. We have 2. We keep them in separate tanks set up so that they can't see each other. If you put them in the same tank together, they are going to fight, and probably somebody's going to end up dead, so that wouldn't be fun. They will fight over territory, food, and especially males will also fight over females. Their beard here is one of the things they use for communication in that, and they can turn it really dark, sometimes even all the way black, and also puff it up as a threat. Both sexes have the beard, but males use it more frequently than females do. In captivity, bearded dragons tend to live 10 to 15 years. So the next thing I want to show you is a Maruki blue-tongued skink. So this is Gidget. He is our Maruki blue-tongued skink. Most types of blue-tongued skink are from Australia, but this particular subspecies is native to Papua New Guinea and Indonesia. He also lives in semi-desert, mixed woodland kind of areas. These guys are not very good climbers because they've got really short legs and really small claws. They tend to live inside hollow logs or burrows that they've made in the ground or in debris. Much like the bearded dragon, the blue-tongued skink is an omnivore. So he also eats insects, other smaller reptiles, snails, slugs, fruit, flowers, etc. Here we feed him a very similar diet to our bearded dragon, except he's not quite big enough for superworms, so until he gets big enough to eat those, he gets mealworms. This is a pretty young little guy, but blue-tongued skinks are one of the largest species of skinks and can get up to 2 feet long. When he feels threatened, he opens his mouth, sticks out his tongue, and puffs up and hisses at whatever it is he's perceiving as a threat. This makes him look larger and scarier, and also because his tongue is blue, he can trick predators into thinking he may be toxic, even though he's not, and then they won't want to eat him. The blue-tongued skink can drop his tail, like many lizards, and they are pretty solitary animals, usually living by themselves except for breeding season in the winter or spring. He uses his tongue to be able to detect for food, predators, and also potential mates. So now I'm going to hand you back to Johnny, and he's going to talk to you about some snakes.
So today I have my friend General Zod with me. He is something called a ground boa. They are native to the island of Madagascar, southeast of Africa. And these guys are what you call constrictors. And so what that means is he is non-venomous. So instead of poisoning his prey, what he does is he constricts around them to the point of suffocation. He usually hunts things from small birds or rodents, generally. Something pretty cool about snakes is they can smell you with their tongue. Have you guys ever wondered why they flick their tongue out like that? It's actually because they have something called a Jacob's sac in the roof of their mouth. And so what that means is they flick the tongue out like that, and then they pull it back, and then they put the forky part into the 2 little sacs on the top of the roof, and that's how they can actually smell you. So an interesting fact about the ground boa is there's something called ambush predators. So when you get another snake, like the one I'm about to show you next named Cleo, he'll actually go around and he'll hunt his prey. Whereas since he's an ambush predator, he can wait in one spot for a very long time, and he'll actually wait for them, and then he'll take opportunity to eat them. So they have a very slow metabolism. In the wild, they probably would eat every 2 to 3 weeks, but in captivity, we like to feed them about every week. These guys can live to about 20 to 30 years in captivity, but only 15 out in the wild. So now I'm gonna introduce you to our oldest and probably most famous snake, Cleo. So this is my buddy Cleo. He is a ball python. These guys are located in Sudan, West Africa. That's where they're native from. And they generally get to about the same size of a boa. They can get to about 3 to 6 feet generally. Some cool facts about these guys is they have this heat sensing trick they have, where since they are cold-blooded, they're gonna wanna find a good source of heat to keep themselves alive. So they have this kind of heat sensor on the bottom of the jaw. And so that tells them what source of heat is coming in for them. They live quite similarly to the boa and the manner of they are non-venomous. And so they also constrict around their prey to kill them, things like that. Generally eat the same things, small mammals and things like that. The reason why they're actually called a ball python is because they can actually wrap up into a ball shape. And what that does is it helps them protect their bodies from something that would want to eat it, like a predator. Whereas a ground boa would wait for an ambush, these guys would actually seek out their prey by their tongue, which we talked about before, how they can smell with their tongue. So they would track their prey instead of ambushing them. They often track their prey back into their dens, and then what they'll do is they'll go inside blocking all exits and they'll eat their prey, and then they'll take over that den until they get hungry again, and then about a month later they'll probably go out and find a new den. Alright guys, thank you for visiting some of our friends here at the Reptile Room. I'm gonna throw it over to Kiara for some spiritual application.
So we've seen a lot of really cool reptiles today. Some different snakes, some lizards, and something that's really cool about all of those animals is that each one of them was very intentionally created for the place that it lives and the things that it was made to do. Each animal has its own different characteristics that suit it to the life it was intended to live. And that is true just as much for you and me as it is for these reptiles. Ephesians 2:8-10 says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. For we are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them." And Colossians 1:15-17 says, "The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in Him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through Him and for Him. He is before all things, and in Him all things hold together." So as you are going through your life, and whenever you see a really cool animal, reptile or otherwise, just remember how it was created intentionally for a purpose, and so were you.